that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
This is a new normal. They're never going to go back home, so they want to help them as much so that they're never just walking out of here and feeling like they're going back onto the street. They've worked with them throughout the process here to help them adjust to this new world order that they're going to be living in after this.
The long-running animated sitcom, The Simpsons, has become known for their ability to depict certain events before they even happen. 9/11, the presidency of Donald Trump, amongst so many other examples. The writer's methods and intentions are another topic, but the Business Insider International gave some legitimacy to researchers and theorists online after posting this article. 11 times The Simpsons accurately predicted the future. CNN, New York Times, The Sun, NBC, the list gets longer every month. And knowing that these companies serve the will of the globalist elite, and that these channels are now openly promoting the idea that The Simpsons are able to predict the future, the implications are concerning. More and more people accept and believe that The Simpsons are eerily accurate when it comes to foreshadowing future events. And if you're one of them, or if you adhere to any one of these mainstream platforms, you better pay very close attention. Because The Simpsons release their own take of what life will be like when FEMA becomes empowered by the Department of Homeland Security.
Lord, give us the courage to worship the American flag, be it on a car, a belt buckle, or on your holy person.
I'd like to say something about the current climate of repression and fear.
Oh, put a fork in it.
Sit down, Saddam.
Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure your opinion will not go unnoticed.
Simpsons, you're under arrest for the violation of the Government Knows Best Act.
Martha, play something to lighten the mood.
I eat some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care. Ah!
I can't believe they put us in jail. It's not a jail. It's a re-education center. Well, where do you think we are? Well, let's see. After they blindfolded us, it was left, right, left, then a 3-hour plane ride.
My only crime was driving a truck full of explosives in from Canada.
I don't know why they put the real ones in with the joke ones.
Hello, I'm the U.S. Constitution, and I'm over 200 years old, but I'm feeling fine. I wish I could say the same for my crazy cousin, Bill O'Reilly.
What do I do? What do I do?
Lisa, that's not funny. You believe in the Bill of Rights. I don't know whether it's the lack of sleep, the sodium pentothal, or that it's the only cartoon I've seen in 2 months. But this is what I believe in now.
Convergence of globalization and technology has created a new brand of terrorism. They were persons who, for whatever reason, came to view their home country as the enemy.
Disturbing news tonight about homegrown terror.
Right now, it looks like there is no connection between the men arrested and any known terrorist cell. Homegrown. Yeah, homegrown, I should say.
We've got a very serious situation here. I'm holding what is called the right-wing extremism, current economic and political climate, fueling resurgence and radicalization and recruitment. And in it, we talked about the fact that they define pro-lifers as domestic terrorists. They put this in a Department of Homeland Security document, this official assessment, now saying pro-lifers, people that believe in end-time prophecies, people that are opposed to the administration's position on immigration, those of us that are standing up for the sanctity of life and for the sanctity of marriage, all of those are now potential, and this is what they're saying, domestic terrorists.
You traitors, pipe down. You're all here because you hate freedom.
Do you get time off for snitching on your cellmates?
You were right, homie. We shouldn't have rocked the boat. Then none of this would have ever happened.
Well, we're not the only ones to be unjustly imprisoned.
That looks and sounds a lot like the Soviet re-education camps of old. Soviet re-education camps can be translated to death camps. We should definitely mind our history. What you just watched certainly weighs a lot with theorists and investigative researchers alike, but we understand for some, it's tough to accept such an evil totalitarian image of the future, especially from an animated cartoon series. But the truth, re-education camps are real, and they are already open to the public.
Okay, check this out, guys. Here we are at the FEMA re-education camp at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. It's about 50 miles south of Indianapolis. It's an active military base. I'm here on a World War II reenactment. We have clearance to be on the base for the battle and to portray the war we're doing. So happened that our camps and everything else that we're set up in aren't too far from these trailers. But I figured I'd give you all a glimpse of what a FEMA re-education camp really looks like. Now tell me why you have a bunch of FEMA trailers surrounded by concrete barriers and chain link fence. And not only that, you have guard towers at each and every end. And more trailers on the other side that have not been set up yet. Here is another one. And another one, and dechem stations to mop out.
I'm here to talk to you about these FEMA camps. I'm very disturbed about them. Why would we be building these things all over the country? For what purpose?
Well, we wouldn't, because they don't exist. It's just a figment of some people who have concerns about maybe Martians or other creatures coming to infiltrate our society, thinking that there are such camps. But
so
there are no such camps.
There are no such. So why was it put into that bill? It's in a bill. So it's put into the bill. It doesn't exist. There are no FEMA camps anywhere in America.
No, there aren't.
What was the place I saw in Texas?
I don't know what.
It was called a residence. It had two 20-foot-high fences around it. When I knocked on the door, it was locked. When the people came to the door, no comment was the answer I got on any question. And what disturbed me the most about this place was in the back, it was like a daycare. There's slides and swings for children. And I said, do you keep children inside this place? No comment. Have you ever kept children in this place? No comment.
I haven't been there, so I have no idea. Maybe
right.
They're immature people.
So you're telling me there isn't one FEMA camp of these in the United States right now?
There are not.
Why is it in that bill?
What is exactly in the bill?
It talks about building FEMA camps, doesn't it? That particular bill that we're talking about?
I would have to, I'd like to see the bill.
Isn't this guy a co-sponsor of the bill? What's the bill number? 6 FEMA camps to be built within the United States. How can a bill state that there'll be 6 FEMA camps built in the United States and then I'm being told there are none?
Well, I think I recall now something about this, and And if I'm correct, I think those are locations for if there's a disaster like in Katrina. I think that's what it is. It's not any kind of a concentration camp or anything to round up citizens.
He thinks that's what it is? The bill that he co-sponsored says the use of the camps will be determined by the Secretary of Homeland Security. They can come and go as they please.
Exactly.
They won't be locked.
No.
They can go in and out, because the place I saw in Texas is locked. You can't go in and out of it. No comment. And
well, it's probably not being used either for a couple of years.
We have films of children playing on the swings and the slides and stuff, and this one technically falls under Homeland Security.
Well, I don't know. I haven't been there, and I don't know who the children are, and the children are probably very happy.
Where have we heard that before?
They're probably children of the people that manage the place, I imagine. But they're not people that have been taken there, by some green monsters in a machine. And
I have fear of my government, not green monsters and machines from outer space.
Do you get time off for snitching on your cellmates?
The U.S. government already has programs and organizations set up dedicated to training snitches and good little slaves, not only inside the prisons, but those who will go out to the public and encourage people, especially Christians and Muslims, to walk right into these re-education centers and FEMA prison camps. The Department of Homeland Security has enlisted clergy to quell public unrest if martial law is ever declared. This scenario takes misleading, corrupt, and deceptive scholars and religious leaders to an entirely different level.
Homeland Security enlists clergy to quell public unrest if martial law ever declared. They tried to recruit my dad and every dentist he basically knows to be tattletales. He said against two, and they said just against, the libertarians, the right-wingers. We just want to, watch your patients for us. And a lot of the dentists were like, what is this, Soviet Union? Secret FEMA plan to use pastors as pacifiers in preparation for martial
law ever become a reality in America? Some fear any nuclear, biological, or chemical attack on U.S. territory might trigger just that. And as KSLA News 12's Jeff Farrell discovered, the clergy would help the government with potentially their biggest problem, us.
From my cold, dead hands.
Charlton Heston's famous declaration captures a truly American value, the overarching desire to protect our freedoms. But gun confiscation is exactly what happened during the state of emergency following Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. U.S. troops also arrived, something far easier to do even now thanks to last year's elimination of the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act. That forbid U.S. troops from policing on American soil. If martial law were enacted here at home, like depicted in the movie The Siege, easing public fears and quelling dissent would be critical. And that's exactly what the Clergy Response Team, as it's called, helped accomplish in New Orleans.
Jeff, the primary thing that we say to anybody is let's cooperate and get this thing over with, and then we'll settle the differences once the crisis is over.
Such clergy response teams would walk a tightrope between the needs of the government versus the wishes of the public.
In a lot of cases, these clergy would already be known in the neighborhoods in which they're helping to defuse that situation.
For the clergy, one of the biggest tools that they will have in helping calm the public down or obey the law is the Bible itself, specifically Romans 13.
Because the government is established by the Lord, and that's what we believe in the Christian faith. That's what's stated in the Scripture.
In the headquarters, Department of the Army Internment and Resettlement Operations, under rehabilitation of U.S. military prisoners and detainees, evaluation, and assessment. It mentions that other worthwhile periods of instruction may include basic computer skills, communication skills, reporting crimes, and suspicious activity reporting. This is a known tactic and compliance technique that is used inside these internment camps to turn people against their own people and towards occupying forces. They do this through fear and reward, by mind controlling the prisoners, breeding traitor informants and enforcers. This tactic was conveyed perfectly in the movie Red Dawn.
2 seconds. What are they? Collaborators. Had to happen. Okay, here we go. Look alive.
It's widely known that the Nazis used trains to transport prisoners to concentration camps all over the region, a one-way in, no-way out scenario. That's why many around America began to raise awareness when more and more three-story freight cars were appearing on railroad tracks. Now, many in the train industry and many who are unfamiliar with it would say that there is nothing suspicious about these freight cars whatsoever. There are freight cars today and in the past that transport motor vehicles all over the country. Sure, they converted the usual 2-story freight car to 3-story freight cars in this particular example, but most people today would look at that as productive. What caught the attention of investigators and researchers is the fact that the trains, like the one you are about to see here, have been modified over the recent years. Some now have windows, and anyone will tell you that cars and trucks don't need windows for light or for air or for scenic views, for anything.
Why they got a train that's got 3 levels with little windows in it? Huh? FEMA trains, people, right here in our own city. What else are there? Look how long that train is. It goes both ways. You have 3 levels, with little windows. Tell me what that is. Prison train? Those ain't for hauling cars. You don't put cars in something like that. Look, they're connected together. Connected together so you can pass through 2 cars. People, wake up. FEMA trains right here in our own city, people. 70 mile an hour. Let's see how long we stay next to these. Yeah, that's where we are. Come on out and look at it. Soon. Every one of these trains, they're dual cars, connected in the middle, connected in the middle, connected in the middle. 3 stories for, you know, prisoners.
These freight trains, like the one you just saw built and operated by Kansas City Southern, were not designed for hauling cars. They have close ties to FEMA prison camps. Not just because of the rumored shackles that were designed inside the 3-story prison trains, but the connection between Kansas City Southern and a man who was responsible for building all of the FEMA prison camps, Dick Cheney. George W. Bush and Dick Cheney actually have suspicious ties with KCS, Union Pacific, Trinity Railcar, the Chamberlain Group, and the Greenbrier Companies. If you follow up briefly on any of these companies, you will certainly find shady deals, preparations, and international influence. But let's focus on the company that has been caught wide open on the rails, Kansas City Southern. It's a transportation holding company that has investments in the United States, Mexico, and Panama. They are connected to components of a NAFTA railway system that links commercial and industrial centers of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So let's call it for what it is. They are connected to the globalists, And after being affiliated with Dick Cheney, and after learning KBR built the FEMA camps in the first place, that's strike two. Now KCS has huge investments in Panama, a country that Bush Sr. invaded before Desert Storm under the pretext of Noriega's drug trafficking. It's now believed that the Bushes have used Kansas City Southern for key CIA drug smuggling operations, that they are using the railway system and the likes of KCS that go undetected from Panama up through Mexico into Texas, straight into Houston and Dallas, or what has become known as Bush Central.
Even Gorbanifar knew that you were supporting the Contras.
Yes, he did. Izvestia knew it. The name had been in the papers in Moscow. It had been all over Danny Ortega's newscast. Radio Havana was broadcasting it. It was in every newspaper in the land.
All our enemies knew it, and you wanted to conceal it from the United States Congress.
We wanted to be able to deny a covert operation.
What's important to know is that on December 4, 2003, Kansas City Southern announced in pro-Homeland Security fashion that it has become a certified member of the Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism program, which is run by the United States Customs and Border Protection of the Department of Homeland Security. Not only did this allow the company to have fewer inspections, but it merged them with DHS and none other than FEMA. Under this FEMA Reauthorization Act of 2017, or H.R. 2548, that was introduced by the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management Subcommittee, this legislation reauthorizes FEMA and gives them full power in the event of a natural disaster, or as they call it, other disaster challenges. So will the likes of Kansas City Southern really be used as FEMA prison trains? Under Executive Order 11005, the government can take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities in a time of national emergency. What's strange is that FEMA has actually removed that factoid out of their Executive Orders section. Now, why would they want to hide from the public that they have that kind of power? Why would they even want to control the railway? The answer is quite simple. For the very same reason the Nazis did in the past. There was a recent testimony given by an anonymous Texas Ranger when he called into the Common Sense radio show hosted by Dave Hodges. He said, "I have been a Texas Ranger for quite some time, and as such, I am privy to much of what is going on regarding the Midland Walmart store closing and the events taking place during Jade Helm 15 military exercises. There are trains moving throughout Texas that have shackles inside some of the cars. I have not personally seen them, but I know personnel that have seen this. This indicates that these trains will be used to transport prisoners of some sort. I know reading your articles that your default belief will be that these are for American political prisoners and will be transported to FEMA detention camps of some sort. We have been told by Homeland Security that these trains are slated for transporting captured terrorists, non-domestic. We are not sure we can trust this explanation because Homeland Security is keeping a lot from us and we are growing increasingly uncomfortable with their presence in Texas." But it's not just in Texas. This train phenomena is happening all over the country, and more evidence suggests that the federal government is using the nation's railway system to prepare for future FEMA prison camps. And this actually struck very close to home. Amtrak, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation. Its headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and the current standing president is Richard Anderson. My father worked for Amtrak in Beech Grove, Indiana for over 35 years. When I was in my early 20s, I came across this video and was shocked knowing that this place was just 30 minutes from my house.
The FEMA plans to imprison American citizens have generated a lot of interest around the country in locating the potential prison camps throughout the country. These may be facilities currently being used as prisons, such as those you saw earlier, or prisons that are being built supposedly in the name of the war on drugs, or facilities that have other uses but which could be quickly used to detain large numbers of people, such as this Amtrak facility in Beech Grove, Indiana. We're standing now in the main parking lot, which doesn't look too sinister. At this level, it is a very large parking lot, fenced on all sides by fence topped by barbed wire. It also has these electronically operated turnstiles. There is also a surveillance camera, just like we saw at the FEMA facility, pointing out to the parking lot, and a helicopter windsock. All of these apparent security measures are particularly unusual here, because this is a very low crime area, and this facility is nothing but an old train repair station with nothing in it worth stealing. In this portion of the parking lot is a brick building, suitable for processing, next to a gate that leads right out to the railroad tracks, and all of this is contained inside a fully fenced area, now 3 layers deep in fencing at this point. This U.S. Air Force train indicates federal and military involvement. Facing the opposite direction, you can see that this area, too, is a very large fenced area with railroad track running the length of the fence and plenty of warehouses. This facility was supposed to have closed in June of 1993, yet instead several $1 million in federal funds have been spent on supposed renovations over the past 2 years. Helicopter windsocks and markers are evident throughout the property. This small building is the only way into a particular fenced area. Inside this building, we see more of the motion-activated detectors, electronic turnstiles, and prison bars. All of the renovations to this property have involved putting in new fencing, electronic turnstiles, concrete flooring in unused warehouse buildings, and putting in large gas furnaces on buildings that were never heated any time in the past 20 years. Outside this building is fencing and a cattle run section of fence, all topped by barbed wire, pointing inward, not to keep people out, but to keep people in. This was common throughout the facility, particularly the new fencing that had been erected. Inside the fenced area on the other side of the building, you'll see signs that say Red Zone, right up next to the railroad tracks that run the length of the fenced area. Next to the Red Zone sign, you can see closely numbered markers on the fences that are too closely spaced to be parking markers, just as if they plan to have people line up to board the trains. The building is one that has a new concrete floor, and its doors and windows have all been blocked. Outside there are new gas pipes. Even as we were filming, a black helicopter flew over us, observing what we were doing, which has happened many times when we have been at the facility. The gas lines and gas pipes at the facility run the length of the buildings. And come out at some very, very large, brand new furnaces that have been installed at the buildings throughout the facility. We found this crane, which has seen better days, but is plainly marked U.S. Army in the middle of the stockyard. We found other fully working military trucks and equipment here at other times. Inside the facility, we found large fenced-in areas next to the railroad tracks marked Green Zone and Blue Zone, suitable for holding a lot of people. Senator Lugar of Indiana recently obtained more federal funding to renovate this facility, which is supposedly only for the repair of broken trains and where most of the buildings on the property haven't been used for years. This tower, overlooking the entire facility at one end of the facility along the railroad tracks, also has a radio antenna on it with a ladder up inside of it. It would make an excellent watchtower.
There are some online running a campaign trying to debunk that the Amtrak facility in Beech Grove, Indiana has anything to do with the possibility of being used as a future concentration camp. But they're wrong. It definitely meets the criteria. It's massive. There is a security apparatus installed by the federal government that is advanced, and it is fitted like any other concentration camp of the past. The fact that the rail system runs right inside the facility for potential prisoners to be processed was enough for me. But the implications were so great that I asked my father, and he confirmed all that you just watched in that video. Even though the facility was closed down indefinitely, millions of dollars were flowing in from the federal government, security fencing and cameras were being installed, and he told me it was unnecessary too, just like the investigator stated, that there was nothing in the facility to steal. My father also mentioned the large furnaces that were being brought in and reaffirmed that none of the local warehouse shops were heated since the opening of the Beech Grove facility, even during the coldest winters. And I don't have to tell you, you know what industrial-sized furnaces were used for in Nazi concentration camps. It's not rocket science, and those methods still apply today because it's the same people behind this preparation today. Glenn Beck, an American talk show host, author, and U.S. political commentator, showed an image of what these camps would look like in the future if they put these furnaces to use. If you happen to be picked up in an area where the train tracks don't lead to the main concentration camps that are spread out all over the country, you may find yourself on these white FEMA buses that are blacked out. These were seen out on the highways and back roads of America during the recent Jade Helm 15 exercises when the military was initiating martial law protocols. And if you're near water and a train is not accessible to get you to one of these locations, they haven't forgotten about you either. Huge FEMA prison ships, or barges, started appearing around the time of Hurricane Harvey near the shores of Texas and Puerto Rico.
Digging deeper now into those FEMA barges we first told you about yesterday, the FEMA barges, which will be used for temporary housing. They will be arriving in 2 days, according to Port Arthur Mayor Derek Freeman.
Live from shelter to shelter. This is hard enough. But at this moment, right now you're talking about putting me on a barge.
Gwendolyn Donahue is not happy with the temporary housing coming to Port Arthur. She was rescued from her home during Harvey and is currently staying at the Red Cross shelter at the Thomas Jefferson Middle School. The next place she lives could look like this. It's a barge, and FEMA is providing 2 of these that will hold about 300 people each on the Port of Port Arthur.
But I'll say again, I'm not a fish, I'm not a crab, I'm not a shrimp, because I don't know nothing about being on a boat.
Nice place, you know, to regroup, you know, get yourself together, you know, give it a try. You won't know unless you try.
Mayor Freeman says 3 meals a day will be offered at the barges along with laundry and satellite TV. Officials are also looking into separating the men and women inside and will also have security in place.
The first thing that I noticed there, that it was like the purge. All I could hear that night was car alarms going off and glass breaking and gunshots. FEMA and other people were flooding these small towns without doing evacuations and didn't care if people were dying. FEMA is trying to put their prison ships out at Port Arthur, Texas, to give a place for people to live because their homes have been destroyed or whatever. I later found out that even though we were stopped at this FEMA resource center and this government makeshift resource center at the mall, and let me tell you, and you'll get part of this out of my story, that they do use malls, they do use Walmarts, they do use these other places to set up FEMA and to create FEMA centers in these natural disasters. I saw it firsthand. And now that FEMA and National Guard took over and suspended all rescue operations, people are they're bringing in prison ships. And I'm going to tell you right now, do not get on their prison ships, because you might not come back. They're allowing the sharks and the fish to eat the bodies that go out to sea, just like they did in Hurricane Katrina. And with millions of people being displaced from their homes and their neighborhoods, you might go missing forever, and they think that you just bugged out and went somewhere else in the country and can't find you. But a lot of these people are going out to sea and never coming back. We head over to the local Walmart and Academy store where they were setting up the FEMA Fusion Center and makeshift hospital, and they had a helipad there to be able to do rescues and stuff. So they were using the Walmart stores and they were using the parking lots there and stuff. There were already lines lining up at the Walmart stores that were at least 2 miles long, and people were being rationed 1 case of water, 1 loaf of bread. It was very socialistically done. This is how FEMA works things. They don't always give people what they need. They just give them little pieces here and there. Basically, there was bread lines forming, and that's exactly what was happening there at that FEMA center.
Executive orders that have been signed from the time of Reagan to Obama have made all of what you have seen so far a possibility. In fact, the executive orders are some of the biggest proofs out there today surrounding the preparation for martial law in the United States and other Western nations following. Rex 84, the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, to name a few. The dark side of government knew you wouldn't read the sweeping powers that were given to the federal agencies working with the Department of Homeland Security, let alone fully understand them. It's always after the fact, but we can see these executive orders being put to use today. U.S. training operations for martial law, the building of FEMA prison camps all over the country, and the measures we have seen enforced before, during, and after natural disasters in the United States, all incremental steps that they are taking to prepare for this new future. But how long will it take for these plans to be enforced on the people? That I can't say for now, but many people are pointing towards the mysterious closings of Walmarts all over the country as being an indication that this is no longer a training simulation.
5 Walmart stores across the country are temporarily closing, they say, for plumbing issues, and one of those stores is at Admiral M Memorial in Tulsa. Now, Walmart says these issues are so large they need 6 months to make these plumbing repairs.
Those associates and customers tell me they just can't believe it's a plumbing issue that's the real issue for the closing. Do you believe it's a plumbing issue?
No, I don't.
Well, Jameson, for the past week, the Walmart story has been blowing up the web as people try to figure out exactly what might be going on. You can see right here, nearly 160,000 people have reached this story.
There's been so many of these Walmarts being closed down and turned into these
federal facilities and closed off. And when they take a Walmart from a town, that this is the only store that these people have to get everything from. There's only one other grocery store that's in this town. So why would you close down a grocery store that everybody, all these old people get their medicine from? That just says a lot. And the media is truly being blind to it. Although there has been episodes where they've had some media people report on it and then they got hushed up.
To make it perfectly clear, Walmart is the biggest, most profitable retailer on the planet. They made over $480 billion in 2016 alone. No matter the location of a Walmart store, they're doing good. They don't go out of business, they put people out of business. We don't have to be experts or investigators to understand that hundreds of Walmart stores closing down at the same time, indefinitely, or for 6 months each, all for supposed plumbing problems, is strange. That, combined with video footage of the stores being completely gutted out, extra security added to permanently closed locations, military equipment, Department of Homeland Security vehicles and personnel being filmed on Walmart sites all over the country. One man even picking up a Department of Homeland Security mobile command center Wi-Fi signal. All of this shows us that the concerns of the American people are valid. Several of the Walmart locations are even building new military-style, fenced-in sections at the front of their stores that look exactly like processing areas. Watch this video carefully and ask yourself, does this look anything like a local Walmart garden center?
Hello, I make this video, I'm not a happy man. I'm at the neighborhood Walmart in San Jose, California. And this is what it has become. I did not want to believe it. Anyone who knows anything about jail or anything about that knows what this is. That is a holding area. Oh, I'm not allowed to go past this line actually, because the security guard told me if I do, it links up to the San Jose Police Department and they will come here and arrest me. That's kind of weird for a Walmart that's not in use anymore. How can they deny this? This is ridiculous. God. And the way it's set up too is perfect. Look at, they got a security, why would you have a security camera right here? Why is this needed? What? This obviously looks like some sort of an entrance that they're gonna have you coming in and out of. I mean, come on. Oh God, just come on. Look at this.
Not long before the Walmart stores started closing down, countless news agencies reported that 588 Walmart stores were now working with the Department of Homeland Security in their See Something, Say Something campaign.
Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security begins with hometown security. That's why I'm pleased that Walmart is helping to make our communities more safe and secure. If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask a Walmart manager for assistance. Thank you for doing your part to help keep our hometowns safe.
So what is really behind the Walmart store closings? Could it really be plumbing issues that has affected stores within the retail chain all over the country? Did one of the most greedy companies in the last century all of a sudden decide that they had enough money and that these locations were not necessary anymore? Some of them closing down after they just opened the year before. I wish I could say that is the case, But more and more evidence suggests that select Walmarts around the country are going to act as processing centers for FEMA prison camps. And that's interesting considering they're already working with FEMA and DHS during natural disasters. There have been several documented cases during hurricanes where people are being hauled away in white trucks to Walmart locations near the storms. They are processed and then sent out to FEMA and Red Cross centers nearby the affected region.
Went back underneath the bridge and they were loading up with as many people, it's got to be dozens of people in the back of that thing. They take them to a nearby Walmart, and then the Walmart is where I guess metro buses or school buses will take them to the shelter. The question is, what shelter are they taking them to? Because I heard Tom say GRB is overcrowded and or not overcrowded, but at the capacity they had planned for. So I think they're...
At least they have a system where they're taking them to a Walmart where they can be inside and wait and figure out what comes next.
Absolutely. And I think the people I talked to, all, with the exception of one, they all were eager to go wherever the truck would take them. They take them to a nearby Walmart, and then the Walmart is where I guess metro buses or school buses will take them to the shelter.
At least they have a system where they're taking them to a Walmart where they can be inside and wait and figure out what comes next.
They all were eager to go wherever the truck would take them.
There was a reporter that just said, at least they have a system where they're taken to Walmart. This means that Walmart had already been set up with FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security to act in accordance with them under their command. Here's a report in USA Today. 154 Walmart stores closed in 2016. It's no longer making sense to anyone. Recently, a construction worker started rumors about military tunnels being built under Walmart, connecting to other strategic military points in each state. But is there any truth to it?
Back in June 11th, 1972, in the LA Times, the lead physicist for the RAND Corporation, he said that in 1972, the government had the technology to excavate tunnels across the United States and put maglev trains in that were capable of doing 10 to 14,000 miles an hour. Now, this is not science fiction. We have the capability to do it. These are U.S. patents by Los Alamos National Laboratories talking about thermonuclear boring machines that melt through rock just like you're taking a knife through butter. I went to Bechtel in Las Vegas, Nevada, and put in Subterrene, which is what they called one of these, a Subterrene, into their computer system. These are images of the Subterrene being tested up at Los Alamos Scientific Laboratories. The actual boring tips get superheated and they melt through solid rock. There's no excavation of materials that are needed. The rock penetrates, cracks, and presses liquid molten glass up through a lining all the way around it. In the early 1970s, there are plans for a network of underground tube shuttles. There are tube shuttle systems leading out of the base.
So we have these tunnels under the United States now. You're saying this is a reality?
Absolutely.
The website IntelliHub, the civilian intelligence agency, suggested the Walmarts are being converted into giant entrance facilities for a network of underground tunnels that the military will use to transport troops across the country, equipment, and prisoners. Phil Schneider gave first-hand knowledge of America's vast underground tunnel network. He personally worked in the DUMBs, as they call them, the deep underground military base systems.
Deep underground military base. Okay, there are 129 of these in these United States. In and around where you live, in Idaho, there are 11 of them. It's a very large number. The average depth of each base is roughly a mile deep. They are basic whole cities hauled out underground.
Goes all the way to Washington, D.C., huh? Goes all the way to Washington, D.C. Yeah, you Homeland Security? Yeah. How far have you taken this down to, how far have you actually ran a load? 100 miles? Up to Maine? How many miles do you think that is? Man, that's unbelievable. Not to mention, I heard there's one that goes all the way to Colorado, right? Unbelievable. What do you think you're hauling? Any idea?
Crap.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Crap makes all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't really know.
Yeah. I know there's been a lot of military stuff being hauled around lately, that's for sure, huh?
Yeah, we deliver to military things.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Appreciate. I heard there's water supply, food supply, everything's in there. Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, basically, we got an underground roadway system here that runs all the way to Maine, to Washington, D.C., to Colorado. It's fully stocked. It runs completely underground. And you can see they've been hauling tons of military equipment.
So could it be true? Could Walmart really be connecting itself to the underground tunnel network? We recently interviewed Joel Skousen, political scientist, commentator, and renowned author of books such as Strategic Relocation. He acknowledged the existence of military bunkers and tunnels in America, built for what he said was a certain nuclear attack on American military facilities, which will be used to implement martial law, round up people in FEMA camps, and convince the remaining people to join the New World Order and hand over all of their rights.
They planned and executed 9/11 to blame it on Al-Qaeda or Osama bin Laden when it was a U.S. black operation. So these are ruthless people. They care nothing for lives. But they are building deep underground bunkers, new ones, not just Mount Weather and other things that we've known about for a long time. They know the Russians know about that. They know that they'll be hit. They've got a lot of new underground bunkers being built because they know this nuclear attack is coming and they intend to let it fall.
The way you're talking, it's as if you can already see this going down, and of course, God knows best the time, but you see this happening sometime in our lifetime. That's the feeling I get, and I've heard a lot about these underground military bases. What do they call them? DUMBs, or you hear a lot about these underground tunnel networks that they're building all across the country that's leading to different military facilities. What have you heard about that?
Well, I don't believe all that I've heard on that because they claim, if you had what they claim to be underground tunnels linking everywhere around there, done by nuclear explosion, still, where do you put the material? It'd be just huge mountains of material. Now, certain pseudoscientists have claimed they've got nuclear Boeing machines that just make the material disappear. I just am not buying that. Now, there are underground bunkers and systems, but I don't know of huge long-distance tunnels connecting them. This war is going to make cities a living hell because it's not just military bases that will get hit. I think it'll be preceded by an EMP attack, and only Russia and China have the capability of launching an EMP attack. It takes 6 nuclear weapons to blanket this grid, not one. So forget about North Korea, forget about Iran doing an EMP attack. Only Russia and China have that capability.
Or the United States.
That's part of their nuclear doctrine, to launch an EMP attack just before a physical preemptive strike. And so even though cities will not be struck, there will be considerable social unrest and chaos as food runs out within 3 days to line. No water, no sewers work, etc. What keeps good people in the cities will no longer be there. The jobs won't be there. So what do? They flee to more rural places, and I think you're going to find a separation of society where more good people end up in rural areas with new majorities. And the globalists have to pay lip service to democracy. They have to pay lip service. If you have new majorities who don't want to be part of the New World Order, don't want to abide by that, I think that's where the resistance will be. But I don't think it can happen. And I don't think all of the terrible things they're preparing for, martial law will happen until the war comes. Remember, the war justifies everything. It justifies a new currency. The economy collapses. Remember, economies never collapse. You can have deep recessions, stock market, but they never collapse without a physically destructive war, such as when the Russians were invaded Germany. Nobody could go to work. Everybody was fleeing. that's when economies collapse. So forget about these sky and falling prophecies about the Fed pulling the money and collapsing the economy. They're going to wait till the war comes. Then that gets the blame. They don't get the blame. These people are really smart. And they get to justify everything. Martial law, FEMA camps, excess prison, rounding up conspiracy believers. You'll see that. I've often said, you know, we conservatives who believe in conspiracy will be the Jews of World War III. We'll be the Holocaust of World War III.
This is former Army Captain Dr. William Mount. In a bold testimony, he shared his experience and expertise in what he says is the reason for the sudden closure of all these Walmarts.
People ask me why Walmarts are closing. The answer is simple. When I took an Army logistics class, the U.S. Army developed the logistics system for Walmart. Walmarts were strategically set up around the world to act as military distribution bases. So if we have problems in Yemen, the Special Forces takes over the Walmart in Yemen. You can order a helicopter and nuclear weapons on the Walmart logistics system. There's a back door into it. They taught me that. If you are going to have Operation Jade Helm throughout the Southwest, you seize a Walmart. You can order things such as M16 rounds. You can order an M16 through the Walmart program. So they walk into a Walmart, fire 2,200 people in California. You're all laid off, go away, no unemployment, get out of here. Because the military then takes over their base. The specific logistics program I was trained on in California is the same program they use at Walmart. The Walmarts are federal military posts. How many Walmarts they have, they get extra money from the government. And when the government takes over, they get a fortune from the government.
If this proves to be true, the fact that they are being so bold with their movements suggests that things are heating up, and Walmarts will act as U.S. Army locations and potentially processing centers for these FEMA prison camps. Understanding that there are clear connected proofs that Walmarts are connected to the U.S. Army and the underground tunnel network. Take a look at this map, which overlays 5 closed Walmart stores and a rough map of what is believed to be the existing underground tunnel system underneath American soil. The similarities are shocking. Now, Sam Walton, the founder and owner of Walmart, worked closely with the Bush family, and we know that Prescott Bush, the father of George Bush Sr., worked closely with Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. It is known that the United States has taken many scientific and military tactics from the Nazis after bringing over 1,000 Nazi military and scientific leaders towards the end of World War II. So it makes sense why the U.S. government saw Walmart as the perfect structure to help the Department of Homeland Security, in conjunction with FEMA, to enforce their new dictatorship.
But first, of course, my respects to Sam Walton and to Helen Walton, one of God's truly special people. We come here to honor a man who shows that through hard work and vision and treating people right, many good things can happen. He's been generous with his fortune, and that is in the great tradition of America's commitment to this concept that I call 1,000 points of light. Now, if Major Kinsella of the United States Army will read the citation, I will present to Sam Walton the Medal of Freedom.
To make the list of what George H. Bush deemed as 1,000 points of light, working towards a new world order, it's safe to assume that Sam Walton was giving up a lot more than just his money. Maybe it was Sam Walton back then who worked with Bush and the secret government to build Walmart facilities all over the country according to U.S. Army plans. What I can say for sure, and what we can see with our own eyes, certain Walmart locations are already being converted into detention centers. It has already begun.
So demonic that we tell people about it and they say, "You're crazy, this is America, it can't happen here." So J. Edgar Hoover said that it was a conspiracy so monstrous that people don't even believe it exists. I had people calling me saying they go out to their mailbox and they find a little red dot or a little blue dot on their mailbox, and they wonder what the little red dot, blue dot is.